So on August 5th, I saw the matinee of On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. That took place in the Irish Repertory Theatre, and it was a 2-hour musical with a 15-minute intermission. This musical is done by Burton Lane and Alan J. Lerner, directed and adapted by Charlotte Moore. It was an interesting musical. I went just to see Melissa Errico in a musical, but the plot was it was weird and it was quirky but it was interesting. It's basically about this woman named Daisy, and she is trying to quit smoking, but she can't quit smoking, and she's also like a really quirky lady. Like, she'll talk to plants and they bloom they bloom and they grow, and people are amazed how fast these plants grow just from her speaking to them. But her main concern was seeing a therapist to quit smoking. So she visits a doctor named Dr. Mark Bruckner, and he was giving a demonstration on hypnotherapy where he just puts people to sleep, and then he puts them under hypnosis, and people do things when he has them to, like when he snaps his fingers. But however, Daisy is really receptive to hypnosis, and it got him really interested. So he was like, I'll be your therapist. Let me experiment on you with that, but without her knowing. So it's kind of like gray area of like, don't do that in therapy. When he puts her under hypnosis, she suddenly becomes this 18th century English woman named Melinda Wells. And she describes her life in England as like I think she was upper middle class or something like that. She was like a very well-to-do English woman. And so Dr. Bruckner gets really interested in this. He's like, I wonder. At first, he was like, you're lying, stop doing this. And Daisy as Melinda's like, no, this is who I am. And she's describing like all the scenery in London and England and everything, and the houses that she was in. And then he realizes later on, she's not kidding. Like, oh snap, reincarnation might be real. Also, this takes place in the 1960s when people were really getting into hypnosis and to see if people can read other people's minds, because she also had ESP with him where she would know where his keys were, or if he was like looking for something and she's like, look in your left pocket, that's where you left it, or the phone is gonna ring, and it rings. And this is also at the time, with kind of interesting history with the 60s and the US government, where they were trying to make like psychic soldiers. Like, a good example of that is The Men Who Stare at Goats. So that, that kind of links, sorta, not like really, but sorta, with that. So he keeps putting her under to get to talk to Melinda, and then he kind of falls in love with Melinda Wells. He finds out about her history, how she had this lover, this guy who was like a playboy who like slept with every woman in town, but she was like totally in love with him. And then they get married, but he's still sleeping around, so she gets upset. She boards this ship called the Trelawney, and it unfortunately sinks, and she drowns. And that's like her last memory. And then there was like a connection in Act 2 with airplane called Trelawney when somebody was supposed to board to go to Alaska, and then she's like, no, I have a bad feeling, and people are like, don't do that, because people are gonna like call the cops, and then you're gonna go to jail for being crazy. And then then they find out, oh, there's like mechanical issues, and so she saved a bunch of people's lives. But during all the before that, she keeps going to this, like, she thought the doctor was like interested in her as in Daisy, not Melinda. And so they were kind of going on dates, kind of, you're not supposed to be dating your patients, but but she didn't realize during their dates he would put her under hypnosis and talk to Melinda. eventually he's like, I need to publish this because there's no one like her. There's no one who goes under hypnosis and brings back one of their past lives. They're trying to figure out if past lives actually exist, if reincarnation exists. And his boss is like, this is kind of unethical. You shouldn't be doing this at all. He's like, no. But then he's like, maybe I won't publish it. But then he, for some reason, publishes it. People are like talking about, because nobody knows it's Daisy going to his office. And she's like, oh, did you hear about that kook? That thinks they're from the past and they must be really crazy. She bumps into a table and she presses a videotape machine that he records her with, and she hears her voice and then her voice transforming into Melinda's English accent. And she goes, oh my God, I'm the nut. He took advantage of me. They have this whole thing about, you took advantage of me. You only care about this Melinda person. You don't care about me. And then eventually he's like, no, I care about you. That was the weird thing about this plot, was like the love story that kind of comes in at the end. Like Dr. Bruckner is like, oh, I love you, Daisy. It was kind of out of left field. Like, it kind of felt like if somebody was writing a story and they're like, oh shit, I need to last minute thing, like a last minute essay. Let me just put something in, and he puts in, or they put in that. It's kind of weird. It is, like, this musical is super quirky, but it was like, you know what, it's a lot of fun. I mean, might as well have fun with it is a silly plot, but you might as well have fun, and the cast and the ensemble totally have fun. Like, I love Melissa Errico so much. She totally, like, she goes from Daisy, like New Yorker Daisy, to proper English woman Melinda Wells, and I really enjoyed how she transformed herself from, she's wearing this like pink dress, and then she suddenly puts on the coat and the bonnet, and as soon as she ties it in a bow, and the hat was kind of connecting to the character too, as soon as she tied it into a bow, she suddenly became this English aristocrat. The cast was really good. Of course, you had Melissa Errico as Daisy Gamble and Melinda Wells, and then for the doctor, he was played by Stephen Gardis. Her friends, Flory Bagel played Sally and Flora. You had Rachel Koloff as Mrs. Hatch, which was Dr. Bruckner's secretary, and Mrs. Wells, which was Melinda's mom. Peyton Krim was Chairman Latimer and Solicitor Trundle. John Cudia was Edward Moncrief. Edward was Melinda's lover. Caitlin Colligley was Janie Preston. Matt Gibson was Warren Smith, and he was one of the ensembles too. Daisy Hobbs was Muriel Bunsen, and then of course Greg Ruletsko was Dr. Conrad Fuller, who was kind of like Dr. Bruckner's colleague, and he was also Mr. Samuel Wells, which was Melinda's father. They were really, really good. John Cudia was kind of like, the stereotypical like English lover, and he's like, come to bed with me, and this and that. It's kind of funny because his hair reminded me of something like straight out of the 1980s, like like one of those like cheesy 1980s rom-com type hair. Or not, it's not like a romantic comedy, but like The Breakfast Club, where the one guy's hair was kind of like that. Because Steven's not on the show anymore. Like, I saw one of his last performances. I think his last performance was Sunday or Monday. I don't know, Sunday or Tuesday or whichever. But now Dr. Bruckner is played by Ben Davis. I don't know how he is, but he probably should be good. I didn't know what to expect, so I didn't have any like expectations. I know there was a previous showing of this with Harry Connick Jr. on, off Broadway or something like that, and so I didn't know what to expect, but it was fun. It was quirky. I did like that it was in a smaller theater, so it was more intimate, and it was just a lot more fun, I think, because sometimes you lose the magic if it's in a really large theater, especially for something as kind of weird as this. The orchestrations were fun. I kind of like that all the band members, like all the orchestra, was in their corner. And then what was really cool was there was a harpist too, and she was playing. I was like, oh, cool. You know, you had your piano, and then there was like some dude sitting behind the piano, like not playing the piano, but he was playing like clarinets and all kinds of other wind instruments, like just switching them out, because I sat up right at the stage, and so you can notice that the set design. This is what the set looked like. It was, again, because it's smaller, it was simple, but it was effective. They had these hand drawings of places like London and New York City and apartments and doctor offices and people's libraries projected onto the walls, so the scenery would change. I kind of liked how it was hand drawn. It felt more personal. And then you had like these little wall things that substituted as wall decorations and seats and everything else. The centerpiece of it all was this like chair with a flower pot and where she would sit and, be hypnotized. Because she's doing it from memory, I kind of did like how they still kept it as an office, but when they were doing all the remembering from the past, from the 18th century, that would still be in there, so it incorporated that she was still under, even though she's from this time period. That one guy, Craig Waletsko, every time I kept looking at him, he looked like somebody from, and I'm not kidding, because sometimes if I look at somebody, they look like they're from a different time period, and no matter what clothes this guy was wearing, I think he wore 3 different outfits, like for 3 different characters. He looked like somebody straight out from like the early 1800s. I'm like, is this dude a time traveler? I know it's silly. That's what I kept thinking every time. The stage door was pretty chill. It was like out in the lobby. Slowly people trickled out. The first one that came out was Craig, and I totally missed him until I saw him like sign a guy. This guy brought like 2 posters of this. He signed and he left. I was like, oh, I missed him. But that's okay. It happens. Like, people are in a rush. A lot of the main people signed it. Steven signed it. And Melissa, of course, and I got a picture with her up there. She made me do it twice because, like, for some reason my camera kind of sucks on my phone. If it's in a darker room, it'll just take darker pictures. And she's like, "Oh, the selfie mode isn't working." So she made these like 2 people take it for us. So that's this one over here. This is why I keep calling her Broadway's fairy godmother, because she's such a mom. She's such a mom in real life, and I love her. And we had like, short conversation, because I've seen her a couple times before at this gala and this 54 and below thing, which I hope to go to again. I know she's doing something in November with that, so I'm definitely gonna go check that out. And she's supposed to come out with an album. So I'll probably buy that. The rest of people like sign. They were so adorable. And they're always like, especially in ensemble members, they're always, and I see this all the time, they're like, you really want me to sign this? And I'm like, yes, because I don't know why it's like this. I think because people just care about like the main actors, but they don't really go for the ensemble members, and that kind of makes me sad because they are part of the show. They make the show work. They put in just as much effort into making a really good show, and they need to be recognized too. And unfortunately sometimes people don't do that. I'm like, yes, please sign it, because you were part of this and you made this awesome. But it was like a really chill stage door, because there was like a lot of people in that theater, but like it was seriously me and 5 or 6 other people just like standing around. The only other main one I missed was John Cudia, because he kind of like came in and then he just left. He probably had to go rest or something. I mean, I got Melissa's, so that was like my number 1 thing. Definitely, if you like quirky musicals from like about ESP and past lives and weird therapy sessions, but cute little musical numbers and simple sets and everything. Just, check this out. On a clear day, you can see forever. It's playing at the Irish Repertoire Theater until September 6th, and then it goes away, especially if you love Melissa Errico. She's so adorable. I think I rated this a 75 or an 80 out of 100. No. It was fun. It's a good time, so go and see it. Thanks for watching. Bye.